I was just wondering, but like, do you think that's why a lot of people like hate the church now? Because of what happened in the past?
Oh, that's very possible. I think undoubtedly if your father had been killed in some, quote, holy war, unquote, by some zealous Christian, I think you'd have plenty of reason to hate the church, sure. It seemed very logical to me. But then I would hope that you'd have the open-mindedness to read the Gospels and to find out, did Jesus call his followers to go around and kill people? Or not?
No, I'm not going against anything. I was just wondering. I just noticed that there's a lot of people, like when people come out here and preach, a lot of people are against it. I mean, like, they're like just coming out right, like against it. But sometimes, I mean, you're a pretty good preacher. I mean, you're the better ones I've seen. Like, there's a guy out here who'll tell you, like, get up in your face and tell you, like, you're going to hell, you piece of garbage. I mean, like, that's kind of bad. But, like, I mean, I don't know. I just see a lot of people, like, hating it, like, not very open-minded. I was just wondering why you think, like, the past could have affected it and stuff.
Well, I don't know why they do what they do, sir, okay? I'm not inside their heads, so I don't know what motivates them. I don't know their motives at all, okay? All I do know is, when you read the Gospels, it's obvious that Jesus didn't go and intimidate people. Instead, he spoke the truth in love. He lived a life of amazing integrity. In fact, he lived the type of life that you in your best moments, that I in my best moments, that we both would like to live. That's why I think it'd be real wise for you and for me to read the Gospels, to check out Jesus very carefully.
What do you mean by reliable? Like a car that doesn't break down is reliable.
Yeah.
Jesus is less likely to break down than Buddhism?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
How does Jesus break down?
He doesn't.
Well, how could a Jesus break down?
How could the Buddha break down?
Yeah.
You bet. It was real simple. In 1 Corinthians 15, Paul writes, if Jesus Christ is not risen from the dead, we're a pack of fools for believing in him. See, Jesus made a big mistake. Jesus gave us a way to verify or falsify him. Because while Jesus was alive, he said, I'm going to die and rise from the dead. So faith in Christ is based on his credibility or lack thereof. And if Christ did not rise from the dead, I'm an idiot for believing in him. So all you need to do to blow my faith out of the water is to show that Christ did not indeed rise from the dead.
It still seems to me that you're trying to put Christianity above other religions. That
you can't prove
fair.
one way or the other, because none of us were there when it happened, and all we have are secondhand stories from a Bible that's been translated many times over. So,
amen.
It all comes down to faith, right? You don't know for sure, you just exercise faith. That's what faith is. Believe in something for no other reason than because you want to.
That's not faith, that's gullibility, what you just described.
Gullibility?
Yeah, gullibility is believing something for no other reason except you choose to believe it.
That's Christianity.
It is
You
not.
have no objective evidence at all. None.
The objective historical evidence is
Historical
that
is
Jesus
not
lived, taught, died, and rose from the dead.
I bet if you were born in India and you were Hindu right now, you wouldn't be claiming that.
I don't know what I'd be doing. Guess what, guys? I wasn't born in India. So there's no way I can answer that question.
God is everywhere.
How do you know that?
Time.
Why do you believe that?
I just believe that. I believe he's an all-powerful force.
Okay. But why do you believe that?
Maybe since he's been on this earth for 20-some years, he has some input and he gets the feeling that God is everywhere and that God is very powerful.
What is the evidence that whatever it is I believe is true? So why do you believe God's all-powerful? What's the evidence?
I feel it. I just feel it. It's just an all-powerful energy force. It's available.
I think you'd be a fool to adopt one of them.
It's available for you to use, and it does everything. It does all good and all bad, too.
Okay. How do you get in touch with this energy force?
Prayer.
Prayer?
Prayer is good.
Okay, so you pray to this all-powerful God who's all good and all evil, everything all combined?
Everything.
Well, what do you say to this all-powerful God?
You say thank you.
Thank you for being evil as well as good?
Exactly.
Why would you thank him for being evil?
Because I thank him for everything.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's good to have.
Well, if he's evil, how can he be good at the same time?
Because he's God. He's everything.
Okay, so is he part of God?
Yes.
He is.
Yes,
And I'm part of God.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I haul back and slap him in the face. Part of God just hit part of God.
Sure. God's got a great sense of humor.
You find that to be humorous?
Sure.
You find Columbine to be humorous?
You have to.
You have to.
You just have to look at it that way.
You find Kosovo to be humorous?
Because it happened.
Mm-hmm. You find the rape of a woman to be humorous?
Got you, man.
You got one sense of humor, bud. Wow.
You just can't have good without evil.
Oh, I got to go to work.
It is getting hot in the kitchen, isn't it? You better get out fast, bud. It's getting awful hot in here. I sure hope you think a little bit about what you said out here. I just hope you think about, did any of that stuff I said make real sense at all? Think. It's very, very healthy. I'm so glad you're here at Purdue. They encourage you to think, don't they? Very good.
I do have to go to work.
There's only one way that I know that God loves you, and that's because God revealed it. I'm not smart enough to figure you out. There's only one way I know you. If you choose to open up and reveal yourself to me. I'm not going to sit here and say, well, this guy's like this. Why? Because I feel it. This guy's like that. Why, Cliff? Well, I just get these jibes from him. You know, this energy comes out of him. No. I've got to wait for you to reveal, to open up. I don't know what your name is. I don't know where you lived, where you grew up. I don't know what year you are here at Purdue. If I'm going to have a relationship with you, I've got to wait for you to open up and reveal yourself to me. Well, the same thing is true with God. If I'm going to know God, God has to open up and reveal. I'm not smart enough to figure out God.
If you go back to physics, you know everything is energy. Every matter is made up of energy. Where does this energy come from? It can only come from one source, and that's God.
The way you respond.
That's in a nutshell.
Okay, then if what you say is true, that everything is part of God, then God is not a personal being.
Not necessarily.
Because the tree is part of God, the concrete you're standing on is part of God, so to talk about God loving us is nonsensical.
If you look at it from that standpoint, yes. But if you look at it as a whole, as energy, if it all comes back to this energy, this energy can be considered love.
How do you consider energy to be love?
What do you feel when you see somebody? When you touch your daughter and you give her a hug, or you hug your mom, or you see somebody you haven't seen in a long time? Can you feel it? Can you touch it? Can you put it in a bag and take it home?
No. I am convinced it's an ability that I have to genuinely care. And I am convinced that tree and that cement have no ability to genuinely care.
It's just a difference of opinion you guys have. It's okay.
It's all, when it comes right down to it,
right.
It's all the same anyway. It's all just detail. It all comes down to love, and that's it.
Well, what is love?
I think you know what love is. I don't think I have to tell you what it is.
Not convinced.
From your worldview, man, there's no basis for real love.
Huh?
From your worldview, everything is part of God. So hatred, evil, goodness, love, it all just mushes together.
My point here is that it's all in your perspective. You can look at death and you can see where these kids at Columbine were killed, and you can say that's evil. That was
No, death just happens. It's just part of reality.
Right.
And all of reality is one. So what's wrong with kids killing kids?
So you can learn.
Well, what do you learn?
You learn that that's not the way that you want.
From your perspective, according to your opinion, but that's all relative.
You learn that it's not a positive thing, that you prefer that that's not what you like. As a
What
whole,
did you do?
But you need an icon like Jesus Christ.
yeah.
No, you don't need an icon.
Oh, you don't?
But if everything's relative, if everything is part of God, then when a kid picks up a gun and blows another person away, that's part of God. That's God shooting part of God. You can't kick back and say that's wrong. You just say it happens. It's part of what happens. And if that's the way you want to happen that way.
When these things occur, we as a society have to look at it and say, is this where we want our society to be going? And that is where it can be considered a good thing. It's not great for the families that they lost their people at all.
Yeah, but if they would just wake up and realize that your worldview is correct, then everything is part of God, and death is part of God, and life is part of God, and there's nothing wrong with death. It's just part of reality, and everything's God. So there's no big problem with Columbine. There's no big problem with date rape.
Really die?
It just happens.
Or do they just change form?
Exactly. According to your worldview, everything is part of the Brahman, upper ground, God, the ground of our being. So therefore, be this woman sucking wind, or be her body dead, and her energy pushing up daisies to help us enjoy flowers in the spring, it really doesn't matter. Her energy just keeps on going, in the form of fertilizer, or in the form of a wife. It really doesn't matter, or a mother. It's all just a big whole. It all just sort of comes together. And I'm standing here saying, trash. I'm standing here saying, her life has a significance. Why? Because God has created her for a purpose. And that purpose is to love God with her heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love her neighbor. And if she goes around molesting little kids, if she goes around blowing people away with a gun, that is absolutely evil. Well, the only way it can be absolutely evil, man, is if there is a mind prior to the human mind that creates and defines what's good and what's evil. Because if there is no mind prior to the human mind that defines what's good or evil, then you're right. Everything's relative. So we have two contradictory worldviews. We are contradicting each other.
Cliff.
That's right. I'm just a bad dream that you're having. I'm not really here. I'm just a bad dream. And it seems like you're having this conversation with me, but in reality, it's just a bad dream you're having.
Cliff. I can't get this guy.
There's not a need for hostility, but by golly, there sure is a need for searching for truth, searching for reality. And if we're all having a bad dream out here right now, then let's wake up. But if we're having a conversation and dealing with substantial issues, then let's not cop out by saying, well, whatever seems cool for you, it's cool. A member of a very famous American family went to Harvard University. And that member of that very famous American family hired other people to take his exams at Harvard. He was caught. It did not prevent him from becoming a senator in the United States Senate. So, obviously, people who cheat can continue to rise and do very well in our society.
Who says that politician is doing well in society? Would you rather be representing criminals in the population of America? If you consider that doing well in society, then you can cheat. Certain population of America are cheaters. Certain population of America are criminals. Someone has to represent them in Senate. You need a cheater and a thief in Senate. So you have one. But you consider doing well in our society, becoming an intellectual, professor, a researcher, and contributing to man's knowledge, or just learning on your own, then cheating will do you no good. If you consider being popular in our society, doing well in society, you consider doing well in society, helping others, then joining Peace Corps will be great for you, and then going to college does you no good as well. So I mean, it just depends on what you consider helping or doing well in our society.
Arbitrary, really. Exactly. It's totally arbitrary. And my point is, no, it's not totally arbitrary. God has given you a mind. He's put you in a position of responsibility to develop that mind. But the reason you develop that mind is not so that you can fulfill some arbitrary bias that you've constructed on your own. Rather, the reason you develop that mind is because you're responsible to God to not be lazy and slothful. You're responsible to develop that mind so that you can serve God and serve people more effectively. And when you understand that that's true, you have a passion to go for it. Does that make any sense?
Well, I see there's a passion out there, but I can't see why you can attribute it to God only. I mean, one factor, one reason could be that there is a God, and He's one pushing us forward. Another factor is that through evolution, we've obtained this desire to go forward and step forward, or to stand still and die. Those that have stood still and done nothing have died, and those that succeeded and evolved are the ones that seek, that strive.
But morality based on evolution is simply arbitrary. It's simply an issue of what you choose at your particular level of the evolutionary cycle.
And morality is arbitrary. There's no such thing as absolute morality.
Okay, then why study? Why not just cheat on your next exam?
Because then I'll be cheating myself and not professor, not this university. I hopefully one day would love to go to graduate school. If I go there and I cheat and I get a 4.0 undergrad and I go to grad school, I'll be lost. I'll learn nothing. If I cheat all the way to my PhD, I'll have a PhD, a piece of paper that means nothing to me. It gives me a title, gives me a doctorate, but I have learned nothing. I have a piece of paper hanging on my wall that's worth $12. Actually more, probably $1 million.
Yeah, but the point is, if everything's relative, you can either go ahead and study hard, or you can not study hard and cheat. It really doesn't matter. And you can sit there and say, yeah, but I'm not being true to myself. Well, what do you mean true? Just you do whatever you arbitrarily choose to do if everything's relative.
Society has given you the moral structure to choose not to cheat through the 18, 20, 25 years that we've been in society. And that's why we don't cheat, just to succeed. And that society has also given us the value that, yes, we can go ahead, we can go forward, we can build upon ourselves by learning, and that's also why we don't cheat. You don't have to attribute it to God for it to work.
If you study the society that you were born in, the worldview that is the foundation of morality is a worldview of theism, which states there is some type of God who has created a moral order, and you'd better respect that moral order. And now our society is shifting, isn't it? It's shifting into morality is relative. Fine. But just understand what are the consequences of that. If morality is relative, it doesn't matter what you do. Whatever you choose to do it.
The fact that morality is relative does not mean that, it does mean that you can choose whatever you want to do it, but it also means that you choose different goals. If my goal is to receive an A in a class, then cheating or studying doesn't matter. I'll get that goal. But what's relative is that I get to choose my goal. My goal is not to receive an A. My goal is to do well and learn. So therefore, it's to study, receive the A, which is 1 point to actually doing well and amassing knowledge. That's what's relative about it. I mean, if someone has a goal just to get an A, then there's many ways they can go about it.
Mm-hmm.
They can bribe, they can cheat.
Right.
They can do anything they want to do. So there is no absolute.
Right.
So how can you point to an absolute morality?
Well, my whole point is that if everything is relative, it doesn't matter what you choose. If you want to choose to study to improve your mind, great. If you want to cheat and get an A, because your goal is an A, that's your choice. If you want to bribe the professor, that's not wrong. It's all relative. Now, my point is, you don't live that out consistently. If somebody steals your backpack, you look that person in the face and you say, you should not have stolen my backpack. And when you use the word should, you are appealing to a standard outside of yourself, outside of the thief, and saying, come on, buddy, buck up and smell the coffee. You know down deep that you should not have stolen my backpack. See, the way you live your life is understanding there is an outside standard. There is a moral absolute. Well, the only way there can be a moral absolute is if there's some type of God to create and define that moral absolute.
That standard is not defined by God. That standard is defined by society. It's a social contract which you were born into, and which we accepted when we became citizens in this society.
In order to mediate interpersonal relationships, you have to have some kind of standard between people which can be generally agreed upon. When you say, okay, you stole my backpack. Well, our code of societal relationships says you cannot do that because it hinders my productivity, it hinders my way of life. Therefore, you give the backpack back. And that's the way it works. You have a dualistic relativity here. You have what I feel in my heart and what I had better do in society, because if I don't, I might get my ass whooped.
Right. And my point is,
Society
only
creates the
stupid
standard.
people get caught when they steal backpacks. Smart people don't get caught when they steal backpacks. I've had many things stolen from me. The thief was never caught.
I have no
Stupid
use
people
for
get
25
caught.
backpacks.
Again, but if there were a God and he had set up some kind of absolute morality, then by that definition, you should see it in every society around the world. I mean, unless God changed from society to society, in which case he wouldn't be a God. He'd be just some localized power. Now, if there was an absolute God, then it would be absolute morality. But yet, when you go from one society to another, you see differences. Differences are too great. You could look at the tribes of, let me think the South American rainforest, the headhunters, back in 14th century.
Yeah?
It was perfectly fine for them to kill. They had trophies of heads.
Yeah?
You don't see us walking around with heads as a trophies of our slain foes.
Uh-huh.
Now, what happens to that absolute morality? What happens to that morality that says that killing is wrong? Killing, one of the basic fibers of our society. You cannot kill. You cannot murder.
Right.
In the Bible, it's one of the 10 Commandments.
Uh-huh.
But yet they found it perfectly fine to kill. They found that it was basically natural selection. If you weren't strong enough to survive, then you didn't belong in the society.
Uh-huh.
What about the Spartans in the
Right.
ancient Greece? They found that when you were actually 7, you went into training for combat. When you were 13, you were set out to live your life on your own. If you weren't strong enough to survive, then you died. And if you had to kill someone to survive, that's fine. If you had to kill someone just to steal their food, that was okay, because you were a Spartan. You were better than everyone else, and your survival meant more to them, meant more than anyone else's. So how can you explain that with using your absolute morality?
You bet. Isn't it horrible the way these cannibals in Africa and South America, those uneducated cannibals, would eat each other and slaughter each other? Oh, we have progressed so beyond that. Instead, what we do is gas Jews by the millions with a very sanitized way of doing it. No, we don't eat their flesh. We just pile their hair up in big piles in these prison camps. Oh, yes. Aren't we incredibly progressive? Tremendously well educated. We're so well educated that we know how to kill babies just before they pass down a birth canal. But of course, at times we don't do it right. And we have what we call an oops abortion, where the kid who is supposed to be dead comes out alive. We are so sophisticated, so educated. In fact, we're so educated, we're so technological, that we have slaughtered more people in the 20th century than in any century before it. Bravo! Aren't we technologically refined? Because we know how to slaughter people, and we don't have to eat them. We can eat other food. So we're not cannibals, but we just slaughter Jews and Russians in gulags in Siberia by the millions. The point is, we human beings have a real problem with evil. And it's not just the cannibal in South America or in Africa, it's us white Westerners that have a real problem with evil as well. Now, why do we have that problem with evil? Because there are no moral absolutes? No. Because we have a free will. And our free will enables us to rationalize evil. And I can rationalize evil just as easily as a Nazi. A Nazi had a reason for gassing Jews. Jews were lower levels of the evolutionary cycle. They were a drain on the German economy, so we got to liquidate the Jews. And I can promise you, the student at the University of Washington last spring had a reason that he date raped. She said no, but I know, said the student to me, that she really meant yes. And I can rationalize cheating the IRS, because I don't approve of everything that's going on in Washington, D.C., so I'm not going to fill out my 1040 IRS form properly. I am incredibly capable of rationalizing whatever I want to do. That's why the moral absolutes that God has created are repeatedly violated in South America, in Africa, in Nazi Germany, in capitalist America. Because we're free, autonomous individuals. And that's why you experience guilt, and I experience guilt, because we violate those moral absolutes. And guilt is God's alarm system. Watch out, sir, you've blown it. You've done wrong.
It's also society's alarm system. Guilt saying, okay, well, I really shouldn't have done this because society has instilled me with this moral value, saying that killing is wrong.
Right.
I feel guilt now. If there's some wacky ass computer thing saying it's wrong to write a certain program and everyone believes that, they'll feel guilt if they go ahead and write this program.
Good.
Even if it has nothing to do with morality.
Right. So just be consistent with your worldview of moral relativism and realize that guilt is just a superficial bias. Guilt is wrong because there are no moral absolutes. So when you feel guilty about something, stamp it out. Guilt is something from the Middle Ages. Guilt implies some higher authority. And you know there's no higher authority. You know there's no God. You know morality is relative. So whenever you feel guilt, stamp it out and realize that's just a little bias. That's just a little prejudice coming down from the Middle Ages. Well, guess what? I don't want to live in that society where human beings have formed a philosophical basis for wiping out conscience. And instead we realize everything's relative. Well, if you take that seriously, if you think it through, it means that nothing is wrong, nothing is right. One way is not better than another. If you're Mother Teresa, good for you. If you're Adolf Hitler, good for you. If you're Saddam Hussein, good for you. If you start Habitat for Humanity, good for you. Whatever you choose to do is okay because everything's relative. Buddy, get me out of that kind of society. That's hell on earth. And that's exactly where our society is headed because we have a new philosophical basis for morality. It's called moral relativism. So if I want to swap wives with this guy, there's nothing wrong with that. Come on, man, don't get hung up on some archaic guilt. And if I want to dump on an African American, there's nothing wrong with that. Morality is defined by me. It's defined by you. It's all relative.
Morality is defined by society. It's not defined by you. You help, but society gives you a point blank, here is your morality, you used it. It doesn't matter. God didn't give you this morality. Society. If you were raised in a society that said swapping wives is okay,